The record in 2019 CR 12495 State versus Tamar McIntyre.
Also known professionally as Tayk. Now he may have a clean and distinct appearance, but let's all remember what brought us to this young man's ultimate judgment day.
24-year-old convicted murderer set to head to trial in a capital murder case next year. Former Texas rapper Tamar McIntyre is accused of fatally shooting and robbing a 23-year-old man. Eric Hernandez takes us inside the courtroom as it was decided when jury selection and the trial would begin.
They're all the same.
Tamar McIntyre, known for his stage name Tayk47, sat quietly in the courtroom as his case was awaiting to be called up. McIntyre, already convicted of murder in Tarrant County and sentenced to 55 years in prison, has been awaiting trial in the April 2017 capital murder of Mark Anthony Saldivar. According to an arrest affidavit, Saldivar was robbed of his camera equipment and fatally shot in the Chick-fil-A parking lot across from North Star Mall. At the time, McIntyre was on the run after cutting his GPS monitor while out on bond awaiting trial. McIntyre was later caught in New Jersey. But while on the run, he released a song called The Race. The music video on YouTube has more than 360 million views, and the song ended up on the Billboard Hot 100. In it, he posed in front of his wanted poster. Because of that video, his attorneys had a concern about the size of the jury pool.
The nature of the case involves a music video, and that music video is very famous and well known, so we may need a little bit more than the average pool because people are familiar and have formed an opinion.
A jury pool of 200 people are now expected to be called in on February 7th and testimony to begin on February 10th. Since being in the Bexar County Jail, McIntyre has picked up 3 new charges of prohibited substance in a correctional facility.
So now that everyone is caught up on the race-running youngster that thought he was slick enough to avoid the feds and dumb enough to make a joke out of being on the run for capital deletion and then making a video about it, not realizing that the police have more resources than the Avengers, and they teamed up to find his dumb ass in some poor girl's closet in North Jersey. Now, he was already found guilty and sentenced to 55 years in prison, just for being there, essentially, and they with 5 decades of commissary slips and from much larger prisoners of the Department of Misguided Corrections. Now, he's on trial for the deletion of some poor camera guy with all kinds of accusations flying around like a trailer in a tornado.
Can I have parties announced for the record, please?
Jason Garrett, Hannah, Megan Galloway for the state, Your Honor. John Hunter, Thomas Lane, for Mr. McIntyre, Your Honor.
All right, it's the court's understanding from the deputy that a verdict has been reached in this case. This is what I'm going to tell all the parties who are present in this courtroom.
Okay, y'all, pay close attention, because if you've watched this particular judge on social media, she don't play no games in her courtroom. If you get out of line, she will get up in your disrespecting her court, and you will feel her wrath.
There's not to be any outbursts. If there's an outburst, what's going to end up happening is a deputy is going to tap you on the shoulder. There's no need to get into a conversation with the deputy. That tap on the shoulder is meaning that you are to leave this courtroom, and you will only be allowed back in this courtroom if you're going to be a witness. Does everyone understand?
In other words,
get out! Trick or treat your up out of here. Let's go.
You cannot do that. So, both parties for the state and the defense, if you need to talk to members who are currently in court that are either with the state or defense, you may do so now. Otherwise, I'm going to bring the jury in.
I think everyone knows to be on their best behavior, Your Honor.
All right, let's bring the jurors in.
All right, for the jury.
here we go. Little Tayk is about to find out what really happens when you FAFO. Everyone remember that little admonishment that the judge gave a minute ago? Well, someone is about to find out why you should wait to hear the entire verdict before celebrating.
See it? All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's my understanding that you've reached a verdict in this case. Is that correct? And is that verdict unanimous? All right, if you will give the verdict form to Deputy Laura, please. We, the jury, find the defendant, Tamar McIntyre, not guilty of the offense of capital murder. What did I, excuse me, no. No, out of the courtroom. Out of the courtroom now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you don't ignore that. Sometimes, as you can tell, people are invested, correct? So it says, we, the jury, find the defendant, Tamar McIntyre, not guilty of the offense of capital murder as charged in the indictment.
And just when you thought he was going to get off free, here comes the bombshell in 3, 2, 1.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Tamar McIntyre, guilty of the lesser included offense of murder.
Oh my! Oh man! Oh no! Randy Orton looks as if he's seen a ghost.
Well, that's it for little Tay-K. This kid did his crimes thinking that he's the new badass in the hood with his pew-pews and wannabe bad boy persona. I wonder how far that's going to take him in prison, where he's surrounded by 300-pound iron eaters that can lift about 200 pounds dead-weighted with one arm. I mean, just look at this boy. Shoulders slumped, his head sometimes dropping, looking with the 1,000-yard stare. He's f***ed and he knows it. And to all my young people, there's a lesson here. Look behind Mr. K. No, seriously. Look behind him, and you'll notice something that should zap whatever meaningless high you may have right out of you and sober you up a bit. Notice you don't see anyone screaming to free this young man in the background. Notice you don't see his friends and fellow goofies hanging in the gallery in support of their incarcerated friend here. All you see is his who I am assuming is his mama and the recently ejected woman who clearly did not hear the judge's instructions regarding the silencing of the mouth when the verdict was read. But what I do see is people related to his victim. They came out en masse to watch their family members delete or get sent to the gulag and thrown away into the twisted system of the prison system. As of the reading of that guilty verdict, he no longer has a name. He became a number, and eventually he's going to realize that, and he will be gone. Gone out of all the memories of his little goofy gangster friends who won't put money on his books. Gone out of the memories of people who were encouraging his foolishness on social media for clout and notoriety. The same people who, after now, encouraging the same bullshit from another knucklehead waiting for him to do the same thing and end up next to Mr. AK711 here. He's gone and will be rather busy with his future of nothingness, loneliness, shame, and repenting for the destruction left in his short time on the streets. The moral of this story is, this young man had a promising career as a rapper and could have brought his family out of poverty and mediocrity. But instead, this dumbass got himself caught up in street life and paid the price for defending its viciousness and never-ending cycle of clout chasing, and ultimately found himself staring at a judge that values the safety of the general public and not some overrated street reputation.